the coma, and the conspiracy. The first thing Amelia remembered was the scent of antiseptic and the distant beeping of machines. Her eyelids felt like lead weights, her throat raw from the breathing tube that had been removed hours earlier. She'd been in a coma for 3 months, 92 days to be exact, though she wouldn't learn the count until later. The car accident had been sudden, violent, and according to the doctors, should have killed her. But Amelia had always been stubborn. Her sister Chloe was the first face she saw when her vision cleared. Chloe, with her perfect blonde hair and concerned blue eyes, holding Amelia's hand as if she'd never let go. "You're awake," Chloe whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Oh my God, you're actually awake." Amelia tried to speak, but only managed a croak. Her husband Mark appeared on the other side of the bed, his familiar face lined with exhaustion but lit with genuine joy. "Welcome back, baby," he said, kissing her forehead. "We thought we lost you." The first week was a blur of tests, physical therapy, and slow recovery. Amelia learned she'd suffered a traumatic brain injury, multiple broken bones, and internal bleeding. The doctors called her survival miraculous. Her recovery, they said, would be long and difficult. But as the fog of medication and disorientation began to lift, Amelia noticed something strange. Chloe was always there, not just visiting, but there, organizing Amelia's medications, speaking with doctors, handling insurance paperwork. And Mark seemed to defer to her in ways that felt intimate. They finished each other's sentences. They shared private smiles. They moved around each other with the easy familiarity of people who'd been living together for years. Amelia dismissed it at first. Of course they'd grown close during her coma. They were both worried about her. They were family. But then she noticed the way Chloe's hand would linger on Mark's arm when she thought Amelia wasn't looking. The way Mark's eyes followed Chloe around the room. The private conversations that stopped when she entered. The first real crack appeared during a physical therapy session. Amelia was struggling to walk the length of the parallel bars, her legs trembling with the effort. Mark and Chloe stood watching, their bodies angled toward each other in a way that excluded her. "You're doing great, honey," Mark said, but his eyes were on Chloe. Chloe smiled at him, then at Amelia. "She's always been strong. Remember when she broke her arm falling out of that tree when we were kids? She didn't cry once." Mark chuckled. "You told me that story while she was, you know." While she was in a coma, the unspoken words hung in the air. Later that day, Amelia asked the nurse for her personal belongings. She wanted her phone, her wedding ring, something familiar to ground herself in this strange new reality where her sister and husband seemed to have formed their own little club. The nurse brought her a small plastic bag. Inside was her purse, her wallet, her phone, dead of course, but no wedding ring. "Maybe your husband has it," the nurse suggested kindly. But when Amelia asked Mark about it, he looked uncomfortable. I must have put it somewhere safe. I'll look for it when we get home." Chloe, standing behind him, avoided Amelia's eyes. The day Amelia was discharged from the hospital should have been joyful. Instead, it felt like entering someone else's life. Mark drove them home in the car he'd bought while she was unconscious, a sleek SUV that smelled of new leather and Chloe's perfume. When they pulled into the driveway of their suburban home, Amelia noticed the changes immediately. The garden she'd painstakingly cultivated had been replaced with neat, boring shrubs. The cheerful yellow front door was now a tasteful gray. The welcome mat that had said "The Martins" now said "Peace." Inside was worse. Her colorful abstract paintings were gone, replaced by Chloe's bland landscape photographs. Her collection of vintage teacups had disappeared from the hutch. The books on the shelves were no longer her beloved novels, but self-help books and business manuals. "It's different," Amelia managed. Mark squeezed her shoulder. "Chloe helped me redecorate. I needed the distraction while you were, you know." While you were in a coma. Always the unspoken ending to every sentence. Chloe bustled around the kitchen, making tea as if she owned the place. "I hope you like the changes. The old decor was looking a bit dated." Amelia bit her tongue. The old decor had been her life. That night, lying in bed beside Mark for the first time in 3 months, Amelia tried to initiate intimacy. She reached for him, her hand sliding across his chest, but he stiffened. "Amelia, you just got out of the hospital. You need to rest." "I'm fine," she whispered, leaning in to kiss him. He turned his head, her lips landing on his cheek. "The doctor said no strenuous activity for at least a month." She pulled back, hurt. "Since when is kissing your wife strenuous activity?" He sighed, the sound heavy in the dark room. "I'm just worried about you, that's all. Go to sleep." But as she lay there, listening to his breathing even out into sleep, Amelia realized something was terribly wrong. The man lying beside her didn't feel like her husband. He felt like a stranger wearing Mark's skin. The next morning, she decided to investigate. While Mark was at work and Chloe was running errands, though Amelia noticed she had a key to their house, Amelia went through Mark's things. His closet was neatly organized, but half the space was empty, the space where her clothes should have been. Her side of the bathroom counter was bare, her products replaced by Chloe's expensive skincare line. In his nightstand, she found the first real evidence. Beneath a stack of books was a small velvet box. Inside wasn't her wedding ring, but a new ring, a delicate diamond band that she'd never seen before. And tucked beside it was a receipt from a jewelry store dated 2 months ago, made out to Mark Martin and Chloe Martin. Martin, her sister, had taken her name. Feeling sick, Amelia went to the home office they shared. Her computer was gone, replaced by a new laptop. When she turned it on, it required a password she didn't know. She tried Mark's usual passwords, their anniversary, her birthday, the name of their first dog, but nothing worked. Frustrated, she went to the filing cabinet. Their important documents were kept in a fireproof box, but when she lifted the lid, she found it empty except for a single envelope with her name on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a document that made her blood run cold. It was a power of attorney, signed by Mark, giving Chloe complete control over Amelia's medical decisions and finances. Dated 1 week after her accident. And beside it, even more horrifying, was a life insurance policy for $2 million. With Chloe listed as the primary beneficiary. Amelia sat on the floor, the documents scattered around her, trying to process what she was seeing. Her husband and her sister had been planning for her death. While she lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life, they'd been signing papers and redecorating her home and what else? She needed to get out of the house. Driving was still restricted, so she called for a ride to the bank. If they had power of attorney over her finances, she needed to know what they'd done with her money. The bank manager, a pleasant woman named Sarah who remembered Amelia, greeted her warmly. "Mrs. Martin, we heard about your accident. So glad to see you're recovering." "Thank you," Amelia said, forcing a smile. "I need to check on my accounts. I haven't been able to access anything since. Of course." Sarah typed something into her computer, her smile fading as she scanned the screen. "That's odd." "What's odd?" "Your accounts. They were closed about 6 weeks ago. The funds were transferred to a joint account under Mark and Chloe Martin." Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. "Chloe Martin, but Chloe is my sister. Her last name is Williams." Sarah looked uncomfortable. "According to our records, Chloe Martin is listed as Mark's wife." The world tilted. His wife. "I'm so sorry," Sarah said quickly. "There must be some mistake. Let me get the documents." The documents were a marriage certificate filed 2 months earlier, while Amelia was still in a coma. Mark Martin and Chloe Williams, now Martin, married in a courthouse ceremony with 2 witnesses Amelia didn't recognize. Her husband had married her sister while she was in a coma. Amelia stumbled out of the bank, her mind reeling. She needed proof. She needed to understand what had happened during those 92 days when she'd been unconscious. She went to the courthouse next, requesting copies of the marriage certificate, the power of attorney, anything with her name or Mark's or Chloe's on it. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, helped her without question until she saw the dates. "Honey," the woman said gently, Are you sure you want to see these? Sometimes it's better not to know. I need to know, Amelia said, her voice trembling. What she discovered was a systematic dismantling of her life. Mark and Chloe had used the power of attorney to empty her bank accounts, close her credit cards, and even sell her car. They'd taken out loans in her name. They'd changed the beneficiaries on all their insurance policies. And they'd gotten married, citing abandonment as grounds for Mark's divorce from Amelia. Apparently, being in a coma counted as abandonment. The final blow came when she checked their home's property records. The house she and Mark had bought together 5 years earlier was now solely in Mark's name. He'd used the power of attorney to remove her from the deed. She had nothing. No money, no home, no husband. Even her identity had been stolen. Amelia sat on a bench outside the courthouse, the stack of documents heavy in her lap. The sun was shining, people were going about their normal lives, and her world had just ended. What happened next would surprise everyone, including Amelia herself. Instead of collapsing, instead of confronting them immediately, something shifted inside her. A cold, calculating anger began to replace the shock and hurt. They thought she was weak. They thought they could take everything from her and she'd just disappear. They were wrong. Amelia went to a coffee shop, ordered the largest coffee they had, and spread the documents out on a table. She needed a plan. She needed evidence. And she needed to understand why. The why became clearer when she started digging deeper. Mark's business had been struggling before her accident. He'd taken out several high-interest loans that were about to come due. Her life insurance policy would have solved all his financial problems. And Chloe had always been jealous of her marriage, her home, her life. Chloe had never been able to hold down a job or a relationship, while Amelia had built a successful career as a graphic designer and a happy marriage. Or so she'd thought. As she sat there, her phone buzzed. It was Mark. Amelia, where are you? Chloe said you left the house hours ago. We're worried about you. The concern in his voice sounded genuine. That was the most terrifying part, how easily he lied. I needed some air, she said, keeping her voice even. I'm at the park. I'll be home soon. Okay, be careful. You're still recovering. She hung up, her hand shaking. They were worried about her, or worried about what she might discover. Over the next few days, Amelia played the perfect recovering patient. She smiled at Chloe's constant presence in her home. She thanked Mark for his concern. She took her medications, did her physical therapy, and pretended to be the broken, grateful woman they expected. But secretly, she was gathering evidence. She found hidden cameras in the living room and bedroom, tiny, discreet devices that Chloe had obviously installed to monitor her. She found tracking software on the new phone they'd given her. She discovered that her medical records had been altered to make her seem mentally unstable, with notes about paranoia and confusion that she knew were false. They were setting her up. If she confronted them, they'd claim she was delusional, a side effect of the brain injury. If she tried to leave, they'd have her committed. She needed help. The problem was, all their mutual friends had been told the same story, that Amelia's accident had caused brain damage, that she was confused and paranoid, that Mark and Chloe were heroically caring for her. Even her own parents, who lived across the country, had been fed the same lies. I'm so glad Chloe is there to help, her mother had said during their last phone call. Mark must be so overwhelmed. Amelia hadn't corrected her. What would she say? Actually, Mom, Mark married Chloe while I was in a coma and they're trying to steal my life. She'd sound exactly as crazy as they were claiming she was. So she bided her time. She pretended to be the weak, confused woman they thought she was. She let Chloe help her with everything from getting dressed to making breakfast. She let Mark patronize her with his fake concern. And she watched. She learned their routines, their patterns, their secrets. She discovered that Chloe still had her own apartment, though she rarely stayed there. She learned that Mark met with his lawyer every Thursday afternoon. She found where they hid important documents, in a safe behind a painting in the home office. She also noticed something else. They weren't happy. For all their planning, for all their conspiracy, they fought constantly. About money, about the future, about Amelia. She's getting stronger, Chloe hissed one night when they thought Amelia was asleep. We need to do something before she figures everything out. Just be patient, Mark said. The doctor said her recovery could take months. We have time. I don't want months. I want my life, our life. Our life, Mark's voice was bitter. This was your idea, remember? You said it would be easy. You said she wouldn't wake up. Amelia's blood ran cold. You said she wouldn't wake up. Had Chloe done something to cause the accident? The police report had said it was a simple case of distracted driving. Amelia had swerved to avoid a deer and hit a tree. But what if it wasn't an accident? The next day, while Chloe was at her apartment and Mark was at work, Amelia went to the police station. She asked to see the accident report, claiming she needed it for insurance purposes. The report was straightforward. Single vehicle accident, no witnesses, no evidence of foul play. But when she looked at the photos of her car, she noticed something odd. The brakes lines had been cut cleanly, professionally. It wasn't visible in the main photos, but in one close-up of the wreckage, she could see the severed line. She pointed it out to the officer helping her. Is that normal, after an accident like this? The officer, a young man named Rodriguez, leaned closer. That's odd. Let me check something. He typed into his computer, pulling up the mechanic's report. According to this, the brakes failed due to impact damage. But look, Amelia said, pointing to the photo. That cut is too clean. That's not impact damage. Officer Rodriguez frowned. You're right. This should have been flagged. I'm going to reopen the investigation. Amelia left the police station with a mixture of hope and terror. If Chloe had tried to kill her once, she would try again. And next time, she might not fail. She needed to act fast. That night, she pretended to have a bad reaction to her medication. Dizziness, confusion, slurred speech. Mark and Chloe rushed her to the emergency room, exactly as she'd hoped. While they were in the waiting room, Amelia asked to see a doctor alone. I think someone's trying to poison me, she whispered to the young resident who examined her. The doctor, taking her seriously, ordered a full toxicology screen. The results came back positive for a slow-acting poison that was being administered in small doses, enough to cause confusion and weakness, but not enough to kill immediately. The hospital kept her overnight for observation. Mark and Chloe were furious, but couldn't do anything without looking suspicious. Alone in her hospital room, Amelia finally had a chance to make a plan. She needed to get away from them, but she also needed evidence to prove what they'd done. She needed to catch them in the act. The next morning, she was discharged. Mark and Chloe were all fake concern and gentle touches, but their eyes were cold. When they got home, Amelia announced that she was tired and going to bed early. She made a show of taking her medication, but instead of swallowing the pills, she hid them in her cheek and spit them out later. She needed to be clear-headed for what came next. That night, she waited until the house was quiet, then slipped out of bed. She went to the home office and carefully removed the painting hiding the safe. She'd watched Mark open it enough times to know the combination, their wedding anniversary, the ultimate irony. Inside, she found everything she needed. The original power of attorney documents, the life insurance policies, bank statements showing the transferred funds, and most damning, a handwritten note from Chloe to Mark. The brakes are taken care of. She'll never know what hit her. When it's done, we can be together properly. No more hiding. Amelia took photos of everything with her phone. Then she put it all back exactly as she found it. She had the evidence. Now she needed to set the trap. The next day, she announced that she wanted to have a family dinner to thank them for everything they'd done for her. I know I haven't been easy, she said, laying it on thick. The confusion, the mood swings. I'm so grateful you've both been so patient with me. Mark and Chloe exchanged a look she couldn't quite read. Of course, Mark said. We love you. That afternoon, while Amelia was resting, she heard them arguing in the kitchen. She's up to something, Chloe said. This sudden gratitude, it's not like her. Maybe she's finally accepting the situation, Mark said. Or maybe she knows we need to end this. Tonight. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. Tonight. They were going to try something tonight. She texted Officer Rodriguez the evidence she'd collected and her address. They're planning something tonight. Please come. Then she prepared for the dinner. She set the table with her mother's china, the set Chloe had always coveted. She cooked Mark's favorite meal. She even put on a dress and did her hair and makeup, trying to look like her old self. When Mark and Chloe came down for dinner, they seemed surprised by the transformation. You look beautiful, Mark said, his voice catching in a way that almost sounded genuine. Chloe's smile was tight. Yes, you look much better, almost like your old self. That's the idea, Amelia said brightly. I feel like I'm finally getting back to normal, or at least a new normal. They sat down to eat, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Amelia made small talk, asking about Mark's work, Chloe's photography, anything to keep the conversation light and normal. She could feel their eyes on her, watching, waiting. Halfway through the meal, Chloe stood. I almost forgot I brought wine, a special bottle to celebrate your recovery. She went to the kitchen and returned with an already opened bottle and 3 glasses. As she poured, Amelia noticed her hand trembling slightly. To Amelia's health, Chloe said, raising her glass. Mark raised his. To your health. Amelia smiled and raised her own glass. To family, she said, watching their reactions carefully. And to truth. She pretended to sip the wine, letting the liquid touch her lips but not swallowing. Mark and Chloe, however, drank deeply. They thought they were so clever. They thought she was the helpless victim. But Amelia had switched the bottles while they were getting ready for dinner. The wine they were drinking was the same cheap stuff they always kept in the house. The special bottle, the one laced with whatever poison they'd planned for her, was safely hidden in her bedroom. As the meal progressed, Amelia watched them carefully. She needed them to incriminate themselves, to say something she could record. So, she said casually, I was thinking, maybe I should go stay with Mom and Dad for a while, give you two some space. Mark's fork clattered against his plate. What? No, you can't leave. You're still recovering. Chloe's smile was strained. He's right, Amelia. You need proper care. Your parents are too old to handle this. I'm feeling much stronger, Amelia said. And honestly, I think it would be good for all of us. You two have been through so much while I was away. You deserve some time alone. Mark reached across the table, his hand covering hers. We're not letting you go anywhere. We're family. We stick together. The hypocrisy was almost breathtaking. Family, Amelia repeated. That's what matters most, isn't it? Being there for each other, through sickness and health, through good times and bad. Chloe's eyes narrowed. What are you getting at, Amelia? Nothing, she said innocently. I'm just so grateful that you were both here for me when I needed you most, while I was in the coma and after I woke up. Not everyone would have been so devoted. Mark shifted uncomfortably. We love you. That's what you do when you love someone. Do you? Amelia asked softly. Do you love me, Mark? Or do you love what I represent, the life insurance money, the house, the convenient wife who almost died but didn't quite manage it? The room went silent. Mark and Chloe stared at her, their masks finally slipping. What are you talking about? Mark said, but his voice lacked conviction. I know about the marriage, Amelia said calmly. I know about the power of attorney. I know about the bank accounts. I know you emptied my life while I was fighting to keep it. Chloe stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. You're confused, Amelia. The brain injury. The brain injury didn't make me find the marriage certificate, Amelia said. It didn't make me see the bank records. It didn't make me discover the note about the brakes. Mark went pale. What note? The one you keep in the safe, Amelia said. The one where Chloe talks about taking care of the brakes. The one that proves you both tried to kill me. Chloe laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You're delusional. No one will believe you. We have doctors' reports, witnesses. Everyone knows you've been unstable since the accident. Maybe, Amelia said, but they'll believe the police. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Mark and Chloe froze. "Who's that?" Mark whispered. "I called them," Amelia said, standing up. "I thought it was time we had some company." She walked to the door and opened it. Officer Rodriguez stood there with 2 other officers. "Mrs. Martin, we received your text." "Please come in," Amelia said. "I believe my husband and sister have something they'd like to confess." What happened next was both satisfying and surreal. Mark immediately tried to blame everything on Chloe. "She made me do it. She said it was the only way." Chloe, in turn, revealed that Mark had been planning to leave Amelia for months. "He was going to divorce you anyway. I just helped things along." As they were being read their rights, turning on each other like the rats they were, Amelia watched with a strange detachment. These were the people she'd loved most in the world. Her husband of 8 years, her sister, her childhood best friend. And they'd tried to kill her for money. The evidence was overwhelming. The cut-break lines, the poison in her system, the financial records, the marriage certificate, it all painted a picture of cold, calculated betrayal. But the biggest twist was yet to come. As the police were leading Mark and Chloe away in handcuffs, Chloe turned to Amelia, her eyes filled with hatred. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done." Amelia just smiled. "I know exactly what I've done. I've taken out the trash." But Chloe's words would haunt her later, when she discovered the final piece of the puzzle. In the days that followed, as Amelia worked to rebuild her life, reclaiming her finances, her home, her identity, she found herself thinking about Chloe's warning. "You have no idea what you've done." It wasn't until she was cleaning out Chloe's old room at their parents' house, where she was staying temporarily, that she found the journal. It was hidden beneath the floorboards, a thick leather-bound book filled with Chloe's neat handwriting, and what she read there changed everything. The conspiracy hadn't started with her accident. It had started years earlier, when Chloe first realized she was in love with Mark. But it wasn't just about love, it was about revenge. Amelia had always been the perfect sister, the one who got good grades, the one who had friends, the one who found success and love. Chloe had spent her life in Amelia's shadow, and she'd hated every minute of it. The journal detailed years of small sabotages, telling boys Amelia liked that she was seeing someone else, losing important homework assignments, spreading rumors at school. But the real revelation came in the last few entries. Mark hadn't been an unwilling participant. He'd been planning his own escape for years. He'd accumulated massive gambling debts that Amelia knew nothing about. The life insurance money was supposed to solve all his problems. But the most shocking entry was dated the day before Amelia's accident. "Met with Dr. Evans today. He confirmed everything. The experimental treatment is ready. Once Amelia's out of the way, we can begin. The money will be ours, and no one will ever know the truth." Dr. Evans, her doctor, the man who'd overseen her coma recovery. Amelia's blood ran cold. She went to her laptop and started digging. Dr. Jonathan Evans had a perfect record on the surface, but when she looked deeper, she found connections. He and Mark had gone to college together. They'd been in the same fraternity. And Dr. Evans had several malpractice suits that had been quietly settled out of court. The accident hadn't been an accident. The coma hadn't been natural, and her miraculous recovery, that had been part of the plan too. She went to the police with her discovery. At first, they were skeptical. Dr. Evans was a respected member of the medical community. But when they pulled his financial records, they found large, unexplained deposits that coincided with Amelia's hospital stay. Further investigation revealed that Dr. Evans had been running a sophisticated scam. He would identify wealthy patients, induce comas using carefully calibrated drug cocktails, then work with family members to gain control of their assets. When the money was secured, the patients would miraculously wake up, or in some cases, not wake up at all. Amelia had been one of his targets, but unlike his previous victims, she'd fought back. She'd woken up earlier than planned, throwing their entire scheme into chaos. The investigation expanded. More victims were identified. More conspirators were uncovered. It turned out to be one of the largest medical fraud rings in the state's history. At the trial, Amelia sat in the front row, watching as Mark, Chloe, and Dr. Evans were led into the courtroom in chains. They'd all taken plea deals, turning on each other in a desperate attempt to reduce their sentences. Mark got 15 years, Chloe got 20, Dr. Evans got life. When it was over, Amelia stood outside the courthouse, the sun warm on her face. She was free. She had her life back, but she was different, harder, wiser, less trusting. A reporter approached her. "Mrs. Martin, how do you feel now that justice has been served?" Amelia thought for a moment. "I feel clean, like I've finally washed off the poison they tried to infect me with." "And what's next for you?" She smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in months. "I'm going to live, really live. Not the careful, perfect life I had before, but a messy, authentic, beautiful life. The kind of life worth fighting for." And she did. She sold the house that held too many bad memories. She started her own graphic design business. She traveled to places she'd always wanted to see. She even started dating again, slowly, cautiously, but with an open heart. The experience had changed her, but not in the ways her sister and husband had intended. Instead of breaking her, it had made her stronger. Instead of making her bitter, it had made her appreciate the good people in her life. Instead of destroying her faith in love, it had shown her what real love wasn't. Years later, she would run into Mark's mother at the grocery store. The older woman hugged her, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Amelia, for what he did, for what we didn't see." "It's not your fault," Amelia said gently. "Some people are just broken." "Are you happy?" his mother asked. Amelia thought about her life, her successful business, her friends, the man she was dating who made her laugh, the peace she'd found. "Yes," she said, "I'm happy, truly happy." And she meant it. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced her to examine her life, her relationships, her values. It had shown her who she really was, not the perfect wife, not the good cyst, but a survivor. A fighter. A woman who could face the worst the world had to offer and come out stronger. On the other side, she never spoke to Mark or Chloe again. They became ghosts from another life, cautionary tales she occasionally shared with close friends. But she didn't hate them anymore. Hate required too much energy, and she had better things to do with her life. The big twist, the one that would inspire people to be better, wasn't in the betrayal itself, but in Amelia's response to it. She could have become bitter, suspicious, closed off. She could have let their poison infect her forever. Instead, she chose forgiveness. Not for them, they didn't deserve it, but for herself. She forgave herself for not seeing the signs, for trusting too easily, for being human. And in doing so, she found a freedom more profound than any she'd ever known. The story of Amelia's coma and conspiracy became local legend, a dark fairy tale with a happy ending. But the real magic wasn't in the dramatic reveals or the courtroom showdowns. It was in the quiet moments afterward. The first morning, she woke up without fear. The first meal she cooked just for herself. The first laugh that came from her belly instead of her throat. She'd lost her marriage, her sister, her innocence, but she'd found herself. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. As she told a friend once, over glasses of wine on her new apartment's balcony, "They thought they were taking everything from me, but they were really giving me the greatest gift, the chance to start over. To build a life I actually wanted, not just the life I thought I was supposed to have." Her friend smiled. So it was a blessing in disguise. Amelia considered this. "No, it was a tragedy, but I turned it into a blessing. That's the power we all have, to decide what our stories mean, to choose whether we'll be victims or heroes. I chose to be the hero of my own story." And she lived happily ever after, not because life was perfect, but because she'd learned to find joy in the imperfections. Because she discovered that the strongest love isn't the kind that's promised in wedding vows, but the kind you give yourself when everyone else has let you down. The coma had taken 92 days of her life. The conspiracy had taken her trust. But in return, they'd given her something priceless: the unshakable knowledge that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. And really, what more could anyone ask for?